What a blessing it is to see all of you on this afternoon in this Wesley Memorial United Methodist Church. Let me offer a word of welcome to all of you in the sanctuary and to those who are watching us in the fellowship hall through closed-circuit television. Welcome to you as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that this day is about these young men and women who represent about a third of our graduating class. I know it felt like thousands were coming in as you stood for a long time, but this is only about a third. These were the ones who were able to get tickets to come to the baccalaureate service. And we are so proud of them. They have completed their studies, and tomorrow we'll acknowledge them with prom and circumstance. And I am so proud of these young men and women in our combined university choirs and our chamber singers who sang for you this afternoon. Were you impressed with these young people? I'm equally proud of the faculty that lead this university, who give of their time and energy on a daily basis to ensure that your children have been educated well and they're prepared for a life of success and significance. You see behind me today only the deans, a few administrators, and department chairs. The faculty obviously are not here in full because space simply doesn't allow it. But tomorrow at graduation, Lord willing, and the skies remain dry as we suspect they will, you will see all of our faculty come in. So these department chairs and deans who work very hard every day to ensure that you students and your students have received a stellar education. Would you please acknowledge our faculty and visitors? And we are so privileged to have with us some members of the class of 1965. In case some of you wondered as they came in, some of you must have thought, boy, it took him a long time to graduate. The truth is they graduated in 1965, and this is their 50th anniversary. Hence, we invite them to come and be with us as is the tradition. We welcome you here today. We're grateful to Wesley Memorial United Methodist Church for allowing us to use this facility, on this beautiful facility, this sacred facility on this beautiful day. We thank Dr. Al Ward, the senior minister, and his staff, and we acknowledge Bishop Thomas Stockton, who was senior minister here and who is bishop in residence at High Point University, and we thank you very, very much. Students, in a moment I'm going to introduce the baccalaureate speaker. And then when we march out, I'm going to run out of here and go get ready to do a live interview for public television with Tom Brokaw. And he will be here tomorrow to speak to all of you as well. And then tomorrow you'll see something interesting as well. You will get your diplomas. And also you will see a great American, a celebrated entrepreneur, a man who began from nothing and believing in the American dream and the principles and fundamentals that built this nation, has built the largest furniture company in the world. He will be honored tomorrow with an honorary doctorate, and it will be your privilege to be graduating in the same class with a person of such demeanor. Now tonight, it is my privilege to introduce to you our speaker, who is no stranger to this pulpit and no stranger to the campus of High Point University. He is a friend of ours and a celebrated United Methodist bishop. His name is Bishop Willimon. He is currently the professor of the practice of Christian ministry at the Duke University Divinity School. He has served for 8 years as bishop of the North Alabama Conference of the United Methodist Church, where he led some 800 pastors. Dr. Willimon is a graduate of Wofford College, Yale Divinity School, and Emory University. He has served churches in Georgia and in South Carolina as well. In 1992, he was named as the first distinguished alumnus of Yale Divinity School. He is the author of some 60 books. That would be 60 books. One of his books was selected as one of the 10 most useful books for pastors by the Academy of Parish Clergy. Over 1 million copies of his books have been sold. An international survey conducted by Baylor University named him one of the 12 most effective preachers in the English-speaking world. He served on the theological faculty of the University of Bonn, Germany, and was a distinguished guest professor at the University of Munster, Germany. He served as the chairperson of the University Council Committee for the Institute of Sacred Music at Yale and on the Board of Overseers for Memorial Church at Harvard University, as well as the boards of Emory, Birmingham Southern, and Huntington College. It is a special privilege for me to introduce to you Bishop Will Willimon.
Class of 2015, you've gotten to be present at one of the great success stories of American higher education here at High Point University, and you were privileged to be part of it, and I know you feel that way. Now, Cassandra read our scripture from Jesus. Jesus told a story. There was a man plowing a field, and as he was plowing the field, his plow hit something hard, and he looked down, and he moved some dirt away from it and realized it's buried treasure. So he carefully covers it back over, and this servant goes to the man who owns the field, and he said, how much would you take for that worthless piece of dry, rocky soil out there? Call me crazy, but I think I'd like to buy it. And then he goes and sells everything he has, and he buys the field, and he gets the treasure. And Jesus says, God's realm, God's kingdom is just like that. Now, I'm sure that since you, class of 2015, have all been carefully vetted by the High Point University Office of Undergraduate Admissions, you're probably people who are good and you have high moral standards, and so you're a little bothered by this story of Jesus because you're thinking, hey, doesn't this man have a responsibility for full disclosure or at least simple honesty to the man that he's trying to buy this property from? Well, if you had the rest of the evening, Dr. Moses or Dr. David could explain to you why such bourgeois, middle-class moral concerns are of little interest to Jesus. Hey, go for the gold, get the treasure, do what's necessary. That's the way it is in the kingdom of God. And I'm hoping that you may be at the right stage in your life to be able to hear a story from Jesus like this. Summer before I started college, I read a book that was popular at that time, Jack Kerouac, On the Road. And I love that book, and where Kerouac tells how he risked everything, left home with nothing but $40 in his pocket, and headed west. And he said, I knew that on the road there would be adventure. I knew that on the road I would meet people I would not meet if I stayed home. I knew that on the road somebody would offer me the pearl of great price. Again, if you had the whole evening, Dr. Moses could explain to you why that's an allusion to another story of Jesus, the pearl of great price. I love that book. It was a perfect book when you're 19, because all the grown-ups I knew stayed home. And they would get up and they would go to work, and then they would come back from work, and then they would, the next morning, go to work again. But it put in my mind that, in a sense, you can't be educated unless you're willing to be relocated. And sure enough, First book they forced me to read in college was The Odyssey by Homer. And we couldn't make much of it. It was old and seemed strange. And then the professor said, hey, this book, this Odyssey of Homer, it is a book about you. Because this college is dedicated to the proposition that there's no way to grow up except to abandon your parents and move in and in a room and sleep in the same room with people who are perfect strangers to you, and then you join a fraternity and you're forced to call people brother that you don't even like. And this is a metaphor for this college, the Odyssey. And maybe that explains why when I was a junior in college, I was thinking about a lot of things, but I certainly wasn't thinking about the Methodist ministry. But a friend said, hey, they're having a conference at Columbia College on exploring Christian ministry. Let's go down there this weekend. I said, why would such a conference have anything to do with me? He said, there are 800 women at Columbia College, no men. I said, okay. And I don't remember much that went on that weekend, of the lectures and all. But I do remember the Saturday night, we were in a motel room, Columbia, South Carolina, and there were about 5 or 6 Methodist ministers there. Young Methodist ministers. This was during the 60s, the civil rights, and they were talking about their lives. And one of them had had a brick thrown through the back windshield of his car at a church meeting. Another had had his kids beaten up on the school ground because of his sermons on racial justice. And I sat there in my low undergraduate imagination, and I thought, wow, I didn't know being a Methodist preacher was this much fun. Wow, where do I sign up? But, you know, back then, some random sticks his head in the door about 10:30 at night and says, hey, who wants to go to New York City tonight? And I said, well what for? And he said, we're going up there and get a corned beef sandwich. And I said, yeah, I could cut class tomorrow for that. Yeah, I'll go. Well, that was a long time ago. Then, you know, I got a degree, I got reserved parking, I got tenure, I got a pension plan. And now, if maybe even Jesus would say, hey, I'm getting a group together, we're going to hit the road, I would probably say, does this carry health insurance? Can we use seat belts? A friend of mine, Episcopal priest, and he decided to have a midlife crisis, so he went to buy a Harley. And he's at the Harley showroom, and this man, the salesperson, is saying, hey, this baby, I mean, you can get from 0 to 80 in 20 seconds. And he said, this thing can run anything on the interstate. You just let some cop try to catch you in this thing. You can outrun everything in this baby. And then he said to my friend, what do you do for a living? And he said, I'm an Episcopal priest. And he said, sir, this is a very safe motorcycle. There is no way you can get hurt on this machine. Thus, last year, a Yale professor of my acquaintance published a book about students at prestigious Ivy League schools. And the title of the book was Willing Sheep. And he complained that the students he taught at Yale, not in there for any kind of adventure of education, but in there, you know, to get to class, get their ticket punched so they can go on to a life of privilege and security. Willing sheep. But I'm haunted by what William Sloane Coffin, mentor of Chaplain Davis, said at my graduation. Just remember, graduates, you might win the rat race, but you're still a rat. Well, I don't know which animal you would compare yourself to, but I will warn you, there is, after High Point University, there is this kind of relentless, virtually irresistible tendency, this downward pull, this tendency of life to transmute itself from high adventure to dull predictability. One day you're an angry young thing, ready to get out of here and twist the world by the tail and set the woods on fire, and the next day you're in an easy chair and you're watching TV and you're complaining about how the kids are ruining the world, and one day you're a fresh person, excited about the prospect of going to college and abandoning your parents and going where you can drink and think anything you want to. And the next day you're just a student going through the motions, accumulating credits for graduation. But Jesus says the kingdom belongs to those with the guts to stake it all on the treasure. I've spent 40 years on and off in academia. Higher education, that's where we teach you to step back, don't get emotionally involved, reflect, think, don't get overinvested. And so I wonder would I risk all for the treasure hidden in the field? Would I even know the treasure if I came upon it? Maybe in life, if it's anything worse than like not making your goals, it's having goals that are too low, that it's settling for too little. High Point University, I believe, can give you a very good education. Unfortunately, it can't give you a life worth living. God help you. Jesus walks along a road one day. He sees some people fishing, and he says to them, "Hey, drop everything you're doing, abandon the family business, follow me." He tells them along the road, this could get rough. There could be jail time. There could be a cross, worse. And surprisingly, a few, not 9 out of 10 average Americans, but a few dropped what they were doing. They risked everything on the prospect of the treasure. They followed him down a narrow, risky road. In other parables, Jesus says there's just something about the kingdom of God that requires risk. A great radical labor organizer, Emma Goldman, supported her radical labor activities by working as a midwife among the poor. And whenever Emma Goldman would deliver a girl baby, she would always bend over and whisper in the newborn's ear, "Rebel, rebel." You got a challenge before you. You've absorbed what we old folks have to give you from whatever we picked up from the world of the past. And go ahead, be a chemist and be a linguist, be a business person, be a lawyer, whatever, but be careful. Because one thing we try to do is to integrate you into the world that worked for us. Trouble is, our world can't be your world. We need you. We need you to overcome your natural propensity to be courteously deferential to the old folks and rebel, practice contumeliness, stare at us, judge us, and dedicate yourself to making sure that you go for the gold. Because we need you. We need you to fix what we can't fix or what we've messed up. Even now, I can see as I speak a number of you looking at me, judging me, thinking to yourself, wow, I'm going to go work out at the gym. I don't want that to happen to me. Well, that's what you're supposed to be thinking. Good for you. Part of my job at Duke, just like President Cobain, although I'm not as good at it as he is, but part of my job is to go visit alumni who are rich and try to get money out of them. And I'm not President Cobain, but I do the best I can. And so I was visiting with this young alumnus that I knew up in Connecticut, and they're a young couple, and they got a couple of kids, and was visiting at their home, and we'd had a great dinner, and so we were sitting by the fire after the dinner, and I noticed the family pet, they had a dog, a greyhound, and the children were playing with the dog and rolling around, and the man said, you know, that dog, that was a professional greyhound from Miami. We bought that dog and brought him up here after he retired, and he was just great with the kids. And so we sat there a while and said, we got to put the children to bed, so we'll leave you. And so they got the children, they went in another room, and as soon as they were out of the room, this dog turns to me and says, is this your first trip to Connecticut? And I said, no, I've been here before. And trying to make conversation, I said, you know, they tell me that you used to be a professional racer, that you worked in Miami, and then you retired and came up here. And he said, what? Who told you I retired? And I said, well, they told me that you had retired. So this dog says, look, 10 years I worked at the track. Every morning I'd show up at that track 7 days a week, get in the paddock with these other dogs. They'd open it up, and then we would shoot out there and follow this rabbit that ran around the track. Every day, 10 years, every morning, following that rabbit around the track. Well, he said, toward the end of this 10 years, I raced really well. I got up and got a good look at that rabbit. You know what? It was a fake rabbit. It wasn't even a real rabbit. I had spent 10 years of my life running around that track after a stupid fake rabbit. He said to me, I don't care what they told you. I didn't retire. By God, I quit.